Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here, back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. And this week, we're going to be talking with Rony Vexelman, Optimove's VP of Marketing. We're going to be talking about all things customer experience related. We're going to be talking about journeys. We're going to be talking about something that's very interesting, and I think it's somewhat intriguing. We're going to be talking about the positionless employee. But before we do that, a couple of quick announcements. If you've got an amazing story that you want to share, or you have a question that you want to ask, please reach out to me on any of the social channels because I am pretty much everywhere. We want to hear your stories because every once in a while I hear a story that I like to write about. And as far as questions go, if you use the question or you have a question, use the hashtag AskShep. And I'll answer your question right there in the social channel on this show, perhaps in my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter. Just go to hyken.com, HYKEN.com. And if you aren't already signed up, you might want to do that because we do something every week. I send out an article. I have a cartoon. It's fun. It's informative. You can share it with your team. All right, let's jump into the interview. Rony, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shep. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I'm excited to have you because we have a lot to talk about related to customer service and experience. You are the VP of Marketing at Optimove, and to me, customer service and experience is an incredible marketing strategy, and so I'm excited to talk to you about that. Before we get into this, I've studied your website. I look at what you do, and right before we got on, I said, can you give me like the 2-sentence version of what you do? And you did such a far better job than I would explaining Optimove. Go ahead and do that for us, please.
Of course. Happily, I'm happy that I do a better job than you. Otherwise, it would be problematic with my job, I guess. At the end of the day, we are a multi-channel marketing platform, right? Some call it customer engagement platforms. But we allow you to communicate with your customers in a more thoughtful way instead of in an automated way, by allowing you to understand customers better, get to know them, and use AI to create orchestrated journeys that are personalized and individualized instead of standardized and automated. So it's a bit of a different approach to the usual problem of journey orchestration for customer experience, customer marketing.
Well, let's start by talking about those journeys because looking at some of the work prior to our interview, you have this statement: broken journeys create poor customer experience. And when I think of a journey, I think of the very beginning moment a customer is somehow introduced to what you do. Maybe they're just looking for what you do and they find it online. And then the process that they go through, whether it be all online, interacting with the salesperson, all the way to the end of that first buying cycle, and then it starts all over again. It never stops, the customer experience. But let's talk about broken journeys.
Yeah, so you just described the reason why journeys break. Usually, everything you just talked about is not one department or one person, right? It's usually multiple departments. You have the acquisition team, and then you have the conversion team, and then you have, the post-purchase retention, loyalty, whatever you want to call them, team, right? And each one is doing their own things. And they're building these journeys. They're usually using some automation platform, some if this, then that kind of rule-based automation platform.
That's outdated. I mean, that's the old way that chatbots work. You program them to understand the basic gist of the question. And then once the chatbot said, oh, this is what they're asking, then this is the answer. The new chatbots with AI, anything goes. They're thinking like a human almost.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many people plan their customer journeys in the old way still. Like how many brands out there are still thinking of this in the way of, okay, I'm going to do research. I'm going to say these are the steps a customer should go to buy whatever they were researching or to repeat the purchase after they've bought, right? And that's what I'm going to roll out. And what ends up happening is, as the simplest example, imagine someone who purchased a product. They fell into this automated sequence of messaging of how to use this product, how to benefit it, so that then they have this loyalty, right? But the customer returned the product. And they're still in that journey. They're still getting these automations. They're still there's no awareness of the customer and what type of experience that gives. That's what I call a broken journey.
I'm having that exact same thing happening to me. There's a software program that I really love that I don't use. So I canceled it, and I am continuing to get all of the benefits of membership or
Yeah.
subscription to this, even though I've canceled. Now I haven't used it, so I'm wondering if I do finally get back in there, they're going to say, I don't know. But in the meantime, their marketing messages aren't to get me back. There is if I'm still there.
They're still there, and they show that they're not aware of why you left, right? There might have been a reason that made you leave them. There might have been a reason that made you return a product if you're in a retail environment. There might have been a reason that made you decide to buy product B instead of product A from the same company. All of this information, you as a CX professional or as a marketer, you should be saying, I want to know that. I want to do my marketing not from a product point of view, but from a customer point of view. And it's much easier said than done. It's much easier said than done.
Right. So we focus on the customer. It doesn't matter where in the cycle they are. It needs to be fluid, continuous. And I know in some of my notes, I may ask you about because you talk about siloed operations. That word silo is like from a decade ago, but unfortunately, it keeps popping up. People say, break down the silos. They've probably been saying it for decades, not just a decade. And yet it's still a problem. We'll get into that in just a moment, but I want to stay on this whole idea of the journey and, traditional customer experience. You have a different way of doing things. I still believe, so convert me. I believe journey mapping is a powerful exercise to find all the touch points that we can hopefully create, better experience with, and also understand what drives those touch points. But you've got a different feel for this.
Yeah, look, I think that there's a place for everything. My issue with journey mapping at the end of the day is that you can put all of the research into it. If you, at the end of the day, are going to turn the research into one master journey, right, with all of the permutations that it might have, but you end up what I call catering either to the mean, to the average, or to your creativity. You have to understand and have to agree that that your population, your customers, they distribute in a normal distribution, and you are trying to catch the broad middle of that normal distribution, and you're giving up the extremes. What if there would be a way for you to capture more of that normal distribution, if not all of it, to be able to provide a journey to the 100% of your customers instead to the percent of those that you've decided to focus on.
Right. So what you're saying, I think I understand it, but I believe you have to have a starting point. So you've got to say, what is the optimum journey for the majority of my customers? And by the way, I'm not pushing back as much as I'm trying to understand your thinking. If they say, 20% of your customers are responsible for 80% of your profits or your sales, which by the way is a general rule, but let's say that we fall along that line, shouldn't we be catering to that majority customer? And I realize there's extremes, but sometimes it's expensive to cater to the outliers.
I agree. But today, because of technology, by the way, you're completely right in everything you're saying. The Pareto principle.
Of course I'm right. I'm Shep. I'm just kidding.
the Pareto principle exists. By the way, inside those 20%, let's use them as a number, right? Obviously, each company is a bit different. People are different, right? Some are your top consumers because they buy a specific product. Some are because they buy more product. Their basket size is larger, right? Or sometimes it's a more of a high-end product what they're buying. But what you want to do is you want to cater to each one. Now, in the past, you couldn't do this because the tools didn't exist. But today, if you can allow to say, this is the data, these are my customers, these are the touch points and the messages that I have, and you allow a decisioning engine to pair the different people with different channels, the different messages and the touch points, you can scale at a much broader level. You can do things different. Now, I will say there is a place and a time for mapped journeys the way that you're thinking about them, Shep, because there are certain things that you as a brand, you as a company say, this is the way, right? A know your customer, KYC kind of thing comes to mind, right? Obviously, that is the process, right? Some service use cases, 100%, they have a delimited step-by-step process you have to go through. But if you think about the lifetime of your customer, it's not realistic to say that you can map the lifetime of your customer in a journey.
Yeah, very difficult. But you still have to understand what the touch points are
100%.
and how to optimize those touch points. And I agree. If there's a way to personalize the delivery of the service, and by the way, I walk into a hotel and they pull up my name and they go, "Oh, you've been here before. Welcome back." And then they start saying, "The last time you were here, you had a corner room. I'm going to get you that same room if you'd like me to do that." I mean, they're hyper personalizing my experience because of a general system they put in place to manage that touch point.
Now imagine if they could extend that to your digital experience with them. If you didn't have to just come, they're doing that at the reception desk. What if they could do that at the moment of booking, when you're booking online, right? How would that make you feel? Suddenly you're like, wow, these guys really are going above and beyond an omni-channel experience that is personalized to me, to Shep, right? So these things today are possible, right? People, we ran a survey, which we're going to publish in a few weeks, and 58% of consumers are talking about preferring to shop at familiar stores. That's up 38% year over year, right? During this upcoming holiday season. So people want to go back. They want that familiarity. They want that good experience that they already had. We as brands, I'm a vendor, but brands and we as vendors have to provide those customers with those experiences, with those reasons to come back. And the way of doing it, automations, and the old way, for me, it's a bit outdated in today's world. We have technologies that allow us to give each person their individualized journey.
Yep. And so I call it the Cheers effect. You're probably too young to remember there was a TV show in the 1980s, a sitcom called Cheers. And for those that don't know it, just Google it, look it up. But their theme song had to do with people want to go to a place where everybody knows their name, which is a metaphor for you know me, and that's why I keep coming back. This is a perfect place for us to take a short break. When we come back, we have so much more to talk about. We are right now hanging out with Rony Vexelman, who is the VP of Marketing for Optimove. And thanks for joining, everybody. Don't go away. We will be right back. One of my favorite sayings is that customer service isn't a department. It's a philosophy. And it's a philosophy that must be embraced by everyone in the organization all the time, and that's 24/7. So if customer service is important to you, and I know it is, then you will love our virtual training, the ultimate on-demand customer service and experience training program that you can access anytime, anywhere. Now, the course content applies to everyone, regardless of position and responsibility, from senior executives to the most recently hired and everyone in between. You'll discover tips, ideas, and strategies that won't cost your company a fortune, but will produce what I call moments of magic, those positive experiences, and it will happen at every level of your organization. So go to Customer Service VT. That's V as in virtual, T as in training. That's customerservicevt.com. It's time to get customer focused.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We are back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Rony Vexelman of Optimove, and we've been talking about all things customer experience, and let's keep on this track. Rony, we talked a little bit about silos mentioned earlier, but specifically, this is a category or an area that you said is really important, that a big breakdown in customer experience happens because brands have not figured out how to consolidate information so that everybody's on the same train going in the same direction. How's that for a metaphor?
It's 100% right. It's exactly the metaphor that you have to think about. You have I know companies that each department has their own automation system. And then you're like, well, obviously your journeys are going to crossfire. Obviously your customer is not going to have an integrated experience. And obviously you're never going to be able to fulfill your desire of being customer-centric because each one has their own agenda and each person sees their own KPIs and each department is advancing in their own ways. And you mentioned, Shep, earlier that siloed is something you haven't heard, like it's a decade-old kind of word that keeps on popping up. And it's incredible when you think about it. For decades, people have been talking about solving the silo issue.
And they still talk about it.
And they haven't been able to. That's why they still talk about it, right? So look, at the end of the day, I think that you and I, we come from a similar kin, right? We say you have to focus on the customer experience and let that be your end-to-end guide to everything you're doing as a brand or as an organization. So have a centralized place that orchestrates everything, that functions as an air traffic control system for all of your communications and touch points with your customers, be it in acquisition, be it in retention, be it in loyalty, be it in reactivation. It really doesn't matter.
That's why the importance of understanding the roles of the leadership. I know you are the marketing guy, but is there a CXO on your team? Or does that fall under your bailiwick?
So no, it does not fall. I don't have a CXO on my team. We do have a CXO that we collaborate with. I think that the concept of CXOs in B2B is a bit different than in B2Cs, right? And I think that in B2Cs, we're seeing a merger between the CMO and the CXO functions, right? And their responsibilities. There's a lot of research out there talking about how these two are coming more and more closer together, right? And it makes sense if you think about it, because a lot of what a customer experiences comes from a marketing communication standpoint, right? Of how your brand is absorbed, how your brand is experienced, and how that impacts how your customer is feeling about your brand.
Yeah. Well said. Here's, and I have gosh, I'll bet you provided me, I'm just looking at my sheet here, about 16 or 17 bullet points, but I want to get to this one because we're going to run out of time if I don't. This is a powerful one. Positionless professional. This is a term you've come up with. I know what it means. In my field, I've been preaching since the very, very beginning. And it was back when I only talked about customer service before the concept of customer experience had never really even been talked about. It was a fancy word one day that somebody used to describe good customer service. But, back in our day, when I started out, I thought, it's not a department, customer service and customer experience. It isn't just a department or a strategy. It's actually a philosophy. Everybody's involved. They just need to understand what their role is when it comes to that. So the positionless professional, let's get your take on that.
Yeah, 100%. This was a philosophy that our CEO and founder came up with. And he came up with from the world of basketball, where, the positionless player, where you can have someone like LeBron who can play as a center or as a point guard or as a small forward. I'm not going to get into all the basketball because maybe your audience is into it, maybe it's not into it. I'm a basketball geek, so I'll skip that. But what it means in the world of marketing and of customer experience is the idea that you can let go of being a specialist. You can let go of just thinking about, this is my lane, here's where I stay. And the reason you can do that, a lot of it is because of AI tools today. You can go beyond. Let's say you're very good as a designer. You are the UX designer or the UI designer, right? You're great at that, but you're not good at microcopy. Now you have tools that can help you be good at microcopy. You won't be great maybe, but you'll be good. You start to expand. You start to be able to do a little bit more. You start to understand your coworker better. You can think a bit beyond of what you do. Let's say you're very good in email marketing. You can start doing a bit of SMS marketing, right? So this ability to expand your horizon as a professional, to do more than one thing, to be able to, maybe if you're maybe you're a content guy, to analyze data with AI, right? With simple prompts. It becomes you more well-rounded. It leads to faster execution and iterations. And in the end, it will lead to better experiences to your customer, because you as an organization will be filled of employees who are so much richer, more rich in their abilities and their experiences and their ability to impact your customers.
So the point is AI is increasing the capability. I talk about this a lot in my speeches and I write about it in articles, knowledge. And it's knowledge of, number one, we want to have knowledge of our customers. That's important. And if we, to your point, if we have information in a central location, everybody can access what they need and know who this customer is, how often they buy, what they buy, all the things about the customer. But now we get to another area, knowledge of what to do in certain situations, knowledge of a product, perhaps something specific. And I've always been of the school, you've got to know, you don't have to know everything about whatever it is, but you need to know where to go to get the information or who to go to get the information from. And in the past couple of years, especially with generative AI and ChatGPT becoming so affordable to even the smallest of companies, we now have that capability to ask questions that we could never get answers from without finding the expert or digging deep, because AI can summarize something that's very complicated in a few sentences, and I could share it back with my customer, and they're thinking, wow, this guy's smart. He's a genius.
Look, 10 years ago, you might have had all the data centralized in one place. Okay, let's say you had the great data warehouse. How would you access it? I couldn't. I need someone who knows how to SQL query the thing. Like I can't. I don't know how to do that, right? Then came, no code, low code, point and click. But today, all you have to do is just ask the question, right? Hey, what campaigns generated a negative? What campaigns were part of a journey that had a negative NPS, right? What campaigns did have high unsubscribe rates? What messages are people responding to more or less? I could just ask these questions in a generative AI type of prompt and get responses together, right? How is my NPS trending for X segment, right? That's something that I would want to know. How many steps and how many tickets would have had to fill in the past to get that information?
You just have to set it up the right way. And once it's not set it and forget it, because you're always evolving. But once you get it set the right way, the future is typically tweaking and, maybe if a new product comes out, adding information.
And it's also on us as vendors, right? Like we have to be able to provide the professionals that use our tools with capabilities that use this in a way that they can actually maximize it, that they can go and be positionless. I want, in my world, because it's more marketing, right? I want an email marketer to come and be able to ask a sophisticated question about how are emails impacting the net revenue of the company and not have to go to a data analyst to get that and wait for 2 days. I want them to get the information immediately so that then they could go and start building the email, right? And that part of generative AI is very clear to all of us of how that works and how that can accelerate your end-to-end.
Well, very good. Well, we are out of time, and I always like to close out our interview with a final question, which is that last nugget of wisdom you want to share. I mean, hey, you are the VP of marketing of an incredibly successful company that helps their clients actually create better experiences for their customers, clients, patients, whatever it is. So what final nugget of wisdom would you want to share with us today?
So I think it's one question. It's a question that every person out there has to just put a hand to their heart and answer, and it's not easy to do this. Are you really starting your days with your customers? Or are you saying that you're customer-centric and you're actually trying to push out a product or a campaign because that is what the business needs today, right? From my experience, the companies who put the customer at the center and start from the customer at the end of the day are the companies that outperform their competition and get to the results of the business that are needed, but not from pushing product or a campaign, rather by focusing on what their customer needs, wants, and building these touch points and these experiences that respond to those needs and wants. And that would be my nugget.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Yeah. Putting that customer in the middle. And it doesn't, by the way, mean you always do things that are going to make that customer happy. But when you make decisions, every decision, even if it's one, nobody's going to love an increased price, just as an example. But why do we have to do this? How is it going to impact the customer? How are we going to communicate it to the customer? How are we going to justify it? to the customer. You ask questions like that rather than just doing it. You start to really become, as you say, customer-centric, or as I say, customer-focused.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's easier said than done because we talked about this. Most platforms aren't built to allow you to do that. Silos exist, journeys break, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we talk about in the last 20 minutes is exactly the reasons why it's so difficult to get this right and to do this, right? But I believe that, hard decisions, as you said, have to be made within the company to go down this path and see it through, and the results are clear on the other end.
Yep. Amen to that. Well, Rony, thanks for being on our show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another interview on Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week. I promise you another informative, exciting, and interesting interview. Until that time, make sure that you work hard and that you practice my mantra, which is to always be amazing. See you next week.